Welcome to the Pearl River County School District Test Security Training. This training will count towards the professional development requirement outlined in the 2019 Mississippi Code, Title 37 Education, Chapter 16, Appendix F. Each year, we are required by law to conduct test security training. Some of the reasons this is important include delivering equitable testing experiences throughout the state, yielding accurate results through consistency and standardized administration. These elements, combined with secure testing materials being properly used with students, ensure the most successful statewide assessment. Many of you have asked why we use a video for our test training requirements. First, because of accessibility. You can watch it when you have time and re-watch parts if you need to. Secondly, it keeps the message consistent across all our schools. Everyone gets the same information with no mix-ups. In other words, we sink or swim together. And lastly, it's a handy resource to have in archives. We can use it for last-minute trainings and to mark changes from semester to semester when those changes come from either the MDE or the legislature. Through the next few slides, we'll take a look at some of the components outlined in Mississippi law governing statewide assessments, particularly what is required by adults and students, ramifications for not adhering to those guidelines, and what constitutes cheating. First of all, Mississippi test security is governed by Title 37, Chapter 16-4 of the Mississippi Code. This law defines actions that are prohibited when administering state tests. These actions include giving students access to test questions before the test, copying test materials, coaching students during the test, providing answer keys, failing to account for test materials, or assisting in any of these prohibited actions. There are serious consequences for violating test security. According to Title 37, Chapter 16-4, violations can result in a $1,000 fine, 90 days in jail, and suspension of teaching credentials. If a test administrator submits a false certification that testing was conducted properly, it is a felony offense. The consequences of this can include a $15,000 fine, 3 years in jail, and revocation of teaching credentials. Additional regulations related to test security can be found in Title 37, Chapter 16-4. District attorneys are responsible for investigating any allegations of violations. The State Board of Education is responsible for setting the guidelines for examining test results and identifying irregularities. The purpose of these regulations is to maintain the integrity of the test and ensure accurate reporting. School districts are required to conduct professional development training on proper assessment procedures and test security for all individuals involved in the handling and administration of each test. Part of that training deals with the chain of custody of secure test materials. The rule of thumb or point of law is that no one is ever alone with secure materials. Also, one of the two persons with those secure items must be a certified teacher. Sometimes there is confusion on what constitutes secure materials and what does not. The rule of thumb is that anything students touch during an administration becomes secure, even if they were not secure prior to the test. Some documents, like test tickets, read-aloud scripts, paper or large print tests, and access codes, are always secure. Anything introduced into the test environment is treated as secure and must follow the chain of custody and be documented upon check-in with the STC. Before we move away from secure materials, let's visit the scratch paper guidelines. Students are allowed scratch paper that will be provided by the STC. Scratch paper must be labeled with the student information, and each sheet that is given must be accounted for when checking in materials. Make certain that students do not eat their scratch paper. Yes, it has happened. Both the proctor and test administrator are responsible for scratch paper accounting. There has never been a perfect testing administration, though we will always continue to strive for that goal. Irregularities will occur and must be documented appropriately. The following slides will detail testing irregularities, which are any occurrences during a test administration that might invalidate test scores. We will first cover high priority irregularities, which include things like cheating or cell phone use. Then we will cover medium priority irregularities, which could include things like technology disruptions. This is an overview of just some of the testing irregularities that could possibly occur during a test administration. If it made it to this list, that means it has happened somewhere in the state of Mississippi, maybe more than once. Please note that all testing irregularities must be documented and reported to the STC. Now, let's dive into the varying levels of irregularity priorities. The first high priority irregularity we are going to discuss is cheating. Cheating includes any kind of disclosure of information by students or staff. This includes coaching students, pointing to correct answers, and reminding students of steps to follow to solve a problem. After the test session ends, this would include students disclosing secure test content to other students or staff that they were exposed to during their testing session. Teachers should never view test content. Students cannot use prefabricated notes, cheat sheets, or study guides. Be sure that all dividers actually hide student Chromebook screens and scratch paper from the view of other students, but a divider is not enough. Actively monitor students so that you know what they are doing behind the divider as well. Watch for students making eye contact with each other, leaning back or to the sides, but also double check that there are no items hidden between the Chromebooks and the divider. If hoodies are worn, watch closely to make sure there are no electronic devices hidden in the pockets or earbuds hidden underneath the hood. Please verify that the cutout section of the divider is at the bottom while on the student desk, not at the top, so that they can play peekaboo with their friend across the way. Let's take a few moments to look closer at educator coaching. This refers to any words or actions of an educator during a test administration that provide a student with any suggestions or assistance in responding to questions or prompts on an assessment. Some examples of coaching would include telling the students, check your work on number 3, when the student had already selected or indicated the answer to an item. Telling the student, you need to multiply the numbers in the question to get the answer. Making gestures or facial expressions to clue a student to an incorrect or correct answer. Pointing to a different answer from the one the student already selected. Instructing students to repeatedly check their work until they mark the correct response. Remember that if a student has a question or concern during a test, both the test administrator and the proctor should approach the student together. Avoid the appearance and temptation of coaching by always partnering up. The next high priority irregularity we will discuss are electronic device policies. This is currently the most serious irregularity because it has been abused the most during recent years. Electronic device violations are taken very seriously and are monitored closely by an independent company in partnership with the MDE. In short, students and staff should not have an electronic device of any kind in the testing environment, and nothing from the test or environment should be captured in any digital form. However, that is just scratching the surface. Here are some things to keep in mind regarding electronic devices. Even if you know the student did not use the device during testing, the possession in and of itself within the testing environment is a violation. Even if you or the other adult in the room with you did not use your device during testing, the possession in and of itself within the testing environment is a violation. Just in the fall, the MDE lost an entire English 2 writing prompt for future use because of social media posts from students. We also lost an entire version of the U.S. history test and several questions from the Algebra 1 state test. This is a serious issue that cannot be stressed enough. Be aware of your students at all times. Smartwatches, earbuds, fitness monitors, and now Meta glasses are able to transmit photos and access AI tools. Any electronic device which possesses cellular or Bluetooth capability is strictly prohibited. Student tests will be invalidated for violations. Test administrators and proctors can be reported to educator misconduct for violations. Take this seriously. The MDE certainly does. There are 3 exceptions to the electronic device policy. The district test coordinator, a designated tech responder, and a state auditor are the only persons approved to have an electronic device in the testing area. The only other exception to this rule is in regards to a student with a medical monitoring device. Those specific students will have their cell phone monitored by an approved adult. Appendix F, Requirement 17, says that both a trained test administrator and a proctor shall actively monitor students by frequently moving unobtrusively about the room. As you can see by the screenshots on this page, student monitoring is critical. Be aware, be aware, be aware. As you comply with Appendix F Requirement 17, consider the following. Where are you looking? Are you watching students or counting floor tiles, bricks in the wall, and ceiling tiles? Keep your eyes on your students. What are you looking for? Are students attempting to look at their neighbors' screens? Are they too close to each other? Are they keeping pace with each other? Are they progressing through the test appropriately? Are they logged into the testing platform, or are they somewhere else? Are they using hoodies, or is the space between the Chromebook and divider being used to hide a phone? Are your students suddenly wearing glasses you've never seen them wear before? Could they be Meta or other smart glasses, which are connected to AI? What are the hall monitors doing? Hall monitors should be doing more than just escorting students for the bathroom. Hall monitors need to be the extra set of eyes through the door windows, looking for unusual behavior as well as monitoring testing staff to ensure they are watching students. Secure material violations are also considered to be high priority. No teacher should view secure test content before, during, or after an administration. Be sure to always have 2 or more security-trained adults with the materials at all times, one of whom must be a certified teacher. Never leave secure materials in an unlocked classroom. Follow all the directives given to you by your school testing coordinator and district test coordinator regarding chain of custody. Now let's look at some medium priority irregularities. These also need to be documented and reported to the STC. Please note, some variation of these will happen during almost every test administration. All accommodations should be verified against the IEP or 504 plan prior to the day of testing. Make sure that the seating chart is labeled with the accommodation each student receives. Please verify that the read aloud accommodation is working on the student device before starting the test and that the headphones students are using are working. It is very important to note and immediately report any irregularities in accommodation assignment and stop the student from progressing farther before the student answers more than 8 questions. Power and technology issues are to be documented if they disrupt the scheduled assessment administration. Complete the irregularity form provided to you by your STC with enough detail to understand the issue. If the classroom bell system goes off during testing, it is not considered to be an irregularity unless it occurs repeatedly during the session. Students may temporarily leave the testing room or be dismissed for the remainder of the testing day, depending on the situation and circumstance. Record the time the student left the room in case they do not return. Doing so will help determine how much test time to provide when the student returns to complete their test on a makeup day. Students should be advised to not revisit previously answered test questions if finishing their test on a makeup day. If you forgot to read the test directions to the students, you must let the STC know. If the TA or proctor must leave the room, a replacement must be assigned immediately to limit the disruption of testing. Record the time the TA or proctor leave the testing room just in case they do not return. Be sure that the person replacing has the same level qualification. TAs must be replaced by another security-trained certified teacher. Double-check grade level sessions to ensure students are entering the proper test. Be sure to record the time correctly to ensure students are given the correct amount of time. Double-check and triple-check student accommodations before testing begins. Please do not read over students' shoulders. Medium priority irregularities should be listed in your documentation and reported to the school test coordinator. High priority irregularities should also be listed in your documentation, but reported to the school test coordinator immediately. Now let's talk about the specific roles and responsibilities you may be assigned during testing. The best way to describe a hall monitor is to say they are a second proctor, with most of the same responsibilities as the ones assigned inside a testing room. Hall monitors should be actively monitoring classrooms through door windows, checking for irregularities like cheating, and double-checking that the adults in the room are actively monitoring. What they should not be doing is sitting throughout the entire testing session or talking to other hall monitors or medical monitors. Additionally, they will be required to relieve adults when necessary and monitor students who may have to use the restroom. Proctors must review and sign the seating chart and assist the test administrator with documentation and materials. They are also responsible for helping to maintain an orderly testing environment. Proctors should continually move about the room, monitoring students and watching for irregularities during each testing session. The proctor and test administrator may take turns sitting as long as the seated person still has a clear view of student activity. First of all, a teaching administrator must be a certified teacher. We cannot stress to you enough the importance of reading the testing manual prior to test day. Many of the hiccups experienced in starting an online state test are outlined in the testing manual. Please read it carefully. On test day, test administrators are responsible for maintaining chain of command of all testing materials from pickup to turn-in. This means that no adult should ever be alone with secure test materials at any time. Be sure to take attendance, complete the seating chart and sign it, and ensure that students sign the electronic device policy after reading it to them. Reading the electronic device policy to students counts as their only warning to remove excuse from violations. Once testing begins, testing administrators should continually move about the room, monitoring students and watching for irregularities during each testing session. The proctor and test administrator may take turns sitting as long as the seated person still has a clear view of student activity. Hall monitors, your most important job throughout testing will be to monitor students and staff through the door windows. If you are a test proctor, your most important job during the testing experience is to actively monitor students for possible violations and irregularities. Be sure you are watching for electronic device violations. If you are a test administrator, your most important job during the testing experience is to actively monitor students for possible violations and irregularities. Be sure you are watching for electronic device violations. The Mississippi Department of Education will send auditors out during each testing window to monitor and assess test security. Doors must be unlocked and door windows uncovered to allow clear access for an auditor. Please be aware that sometimes the auditor will enter the testing room and may stay for the duration of the test. However, the auditor cannot count as the second person in the testing room. As we wrap up this spring's test security training, please note that there can be no food allowed in the testing room during a test administration. Reports and tips have been given to the MDE regarding treats used to guide students in how to respond to test questions or writing prompts. Please ensure that no food, cookies, candy, gum, or anything else like that is in the testing room. Staff may have drinks. Students may have water bottles with no labels on them. Food needed to treat a medically diagnosed condition is fine, but should be documented. Insulated cups that belong to the students should be left in the testing hallway. If students need a drink from their cup, they must be dismissed from your room in the same manner you would if they needed a restroom break. If you suspect a possible testing irregularity or security violation, you are obligated to report it. Both methods of reporting listed on the screen are a confidential way for students, parents, staff, and community members to report test security tips directly with the Office of Student Assessment at the Mississippi Department of Education.